You ever wondered why, when you finish building something, no matter how good it can turn out, sometimes you just still struggle with feeling like it just doesn't still seem kind of extra DIY, like it's not quite professional enough. And I've been doing this for 15 years and I still run into this problem when I finish projects sometimes. And I think that there is a good reason for some of it. First of all, you built the project, okay? What I mean by that is that you saw this thing from cradle to grave, essentially. You saw it from the time that you were drawing it out on a piece of paper, all of your plans for how you wanted this piece of furniture or a cabinet or whatever you were wanting to do. You saw it from that to the material you were going to need, and then you cut all of the material in the shop, and then after you cut everything, then you start piecing everything together, and maybe you do dry fitting, and then after that you're going to go in and you're going to glue stuff up, so you see all of these different steps, and you've seen, and because you've been a part of every single step, unfortunately you've also been a part of the mistakes. And I have yet to actually have a project that at some point doesn't encounter some type of mistake. And some mistakes are bigger than others. Some you do have to sometimes scrap something and start over. And then some of them are not that big a deal and you can just kind of figure out how to kind of work around it. The thing about it is that because we know where those mistakes are, they tend to kind of haunt us. I remember we did a built-in kind of a thing for a closet. So we had a hallway closet, and I did a video on this, but we did a hallway closet, and what we did was we essentially took the door off, and we widened the entry of the hallway closet, and then after we did that, we built essentially like a giant built-in that would slide into that closet, and it had drawers down below, it had about 3 drawers down below, and then we had cabinet doors and stuff on the top side, and it really just made the closet, it was kind of an end of closet type built-in that we did, and it really made it look super finished. It's really awesome and we love it. It's way better than it ever was before. It's a lot more functional. But when I built the doors and the drawers, I miscalculated a little bit so that my drawers and the doors up above didn't quite line up perfectly. So like those lines are kind of, when you look down at the edge of the doors and the edge of the cabinet and the edge of the drawers, they should all kind of line up pretty nice and neat. Well, in my case, they didn't. They were off, and they were off by like a whopping 1/8 of an inch or something on each side. So like total was like 1/4 of an inch, but it drove me nuts. And so much so that, again, here we are. I mean, you think about this. At this point in the game, I was pretty much done. I mean, I had doors to mount, but that was about it. And so I called a buddy of mine, and I was like, man, I need your opinion on this, and he does woodworking and stuff too, and I tell him about it. And he gave me a piece of advice that I think is a great piece of advice, which is this. He said, just mount it, put it all together, give it about 30 days and see what happens. And so for stuff that I build for myself, that's kind of the way that I look at it sometimes, is when I make a mistake, and I know that it's there, and you're going to know the mistakes that you've done are there, I still go ahead and go through with it unless it's something extremely obvious. And I go, let's give it 30 days and see if it's still driving me crazy. And if it is, guess what? I can rebuild the doors. That was the best advice I ever got because I did it. And that was like 3 years ago. And I've never rebuilt the doors because after about 30 days, it doesn't drive you crazy as much as it does right in that moment when you're building it. And so it was a great reminder. And so I think for us as builders, that's the thing that we have to look at. If we're building something for somebody else, obviously we don't want to wait 30 days. So maybe let me take a step back. I'm going to look at this from 10 feet away and say, is this really a big deal? Because that's the thing, is that we kind of have this curse as builders, right? As creators, as makers, where sometimes those things are in our head. Like we know that the issue exists, but maybe it's not that big a deal. And so inside of our own head, we can kind of get in there and all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, it's a huge deal. But to the average person, they don't even know it's there. And if I was going to give you another piece of advice, here's what it would be. Don't tell your customers if you make a mistake. I used to be terrible about this when I would build stuff for people. I would get done and they would ooh and all over it. And I would go, yeah, but you know, I made this mistake and the finish didn't turn out quite like I wanted it here. And, you know, and I kind of was a little self-deprecating in what I had done. And they had no clue. The average person has no clue. And that's the thing that we have to understand, is that it is in our head so much more than it is anybody else's. And honestly, we can have a little bit of a complex anyway, just feeling like that we're good enough as woodworkers as it stands. We see stuff, you know, YouTube and Instagram is completely inundated with all kinds of stuff nonstop of people building stuff, and it looks like everything is better than ours. It looks like it comes together easier than ours. And the reality is everybody's struggling. Nothing's perfect. We all go through these different phases, and it's just a part of it. But again, we get inside of our own head and we convince ourselves that that project is better than ours. And it's not really the truth. Because, you know, what we think is a professional job isn't really necessarily a professional job. Most of the time, it's a commercial job. It's a huge factory that's putting stuff out, and they're building it to huge audiences of people. And you can, you know, I've even found myself doing this. Like the furniture that I build a lot of cabinetry stuff anymore. And I know that, like, if I sit down and I really make myself think about it, I know my cabinets are better than anything that you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. But still, I walk into Home Depot and Lowe's sometimes, and I will see those bathroom vanities in there, and I'll be like, man, that finish looks so good. It's so flawless. Like, look how clean that white vanity looks, or that black vanity is. And then I walked into Home Depot the other day, and there was a black vanity there, and the paint had peeled. And what I thought was the paint had peeled off the door. And I was looking at it, and I walked up to it, and I still don't know for sure how they do this, but it wasn't paint, I don't think. It looks like to me that on their doors, the part that had come off almost looked like a shrink-wrapped, like stiff plastic it had just like peeled off of the door. And so I don't think it's paint. I don't know what it is, but it was just an MDF door underneath it. There was the MDF plain as day. So now all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, maybe mine's actually better. Mine's actually painted. And so, I don't know, I'd love to know if anybody knows what that is actually, but again, it just looked like you took a cabinet door and must have stuck it in like a black shrink wrap and then like shrink wrapped it onto the door, but it had peeled off and it looked terrible. And I don't know how, if you own that, I don't know how you come back from that exactly, other than peel it all off and then actually paint it. So again, we get in our own head. We think that pros are better than us, and the truth of the matter is that pros are not always actually pros. If you think about it, when it comes to things like building houses or building furniture, even contractors and stuff, I'll never forget one time I was talking to a buddy of mine at work, and he was building a house, and I was like, man, how's the house building going? He goes, well, I hate my painter, I hate my plumber. And he was just going through this list of all these different issues he was having with people, and all of these guys are supposed to be pros. And at the end of the day, what we forget is that a huge portion of these people that we feel like are pros may not actually be pros. They might actually just be people that honestly couldn't get up on time to go to a regular job. And so they had to like become like, okay, I guess I'll do this on my own since, you know, I can't get up and make it to a regular job. And so, you know, just understand that not all pros are actually pros. And the pros, the things that we think are so much better than us, and the guys that we think are doing so much better than us, they might not actually be. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people that build stuff and it is far superior to what I do, but I do a great job with the things that I do, and I know that as builders and as makers, you guys out there, I know that you're also doing the same thing. It's just that we can be kind of our own worst critic, and we can, you know, again, we think that somehow that those guys that we label as pros are so far beyond us, when in reality, they're really not. And, you know, there are going to be some people out there that are doing things that are better than you. But by and large, as makers, as a community, you're doing far more than anybody else is doing, because most people, when they get off work in the evenings, they're watching Netflix for 6 hours. Most people on the weekends, they're watching football and Netflix all weekend long and doing absolutely nothing with their time. And you're out in the shop, you're building stuff, you're creating stuff, you're doing things with your hands, you're doing awesome stuff. Don't forget that.